Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show here on Reason and Theology. I want to talk about something that the Russian Orthodox Church has recently said about the Catholic Church, specifically the new Vatican document on blessings. They are saying that the church the Catholic Church has departed from traditional Catholic doctrine, especially on this particular matter. And I found that fascinating. I want to take you to the Patriarchate website where they make this claim through a biblical and theological commission. And I want to examine the claim and see whether or not it is accurate. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see it. And let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so a plenary meeting of the Synodal Biblical and Theological Commission was held. And this was posted on February 20th of this year, so very recent. On February 20th, a plenary meeting of the Synodal Biblical and Theological Commission was held remotely. The work of the meeting was chaired by the chairman of the commission, Metropolitan Hilarion. Now, let's just pause right there. You recall that I've reviewed Metropolitan Hilarion's comments on the Vatican's position on same-sex blessings that it issued in 2021. I reviewed his comments about that, which were very, very much, he expressed a great deal of approval for that 2021 document and said that what the Catholic Church has said on this issue, that the church cannot bless same-sex unions, but only individuals. He said, hey, that's also the Orthodox perspective. So, we're in lockstep on that issue in 2021. However, when Fiducia Supplicans comes out and reaffirms that 2021 decision, he does an about face and he says, oh, no, this is a departure from what the church was previously saying, and it is a departure from what the Orthodox hold to. And I reviewed that and I showed the inconsistency there, where it seems that Hilarion was basing his perspective not so much on what the Vatican has actually said most recently in Fiducia Supplicans, but rather more what the media is saying Fiducia Supplicans says. So in my estimation, he did not read it fairly and with an open mind. He rather read the most recent document with this perspective, with this bias in mind. And so he read it with this suspicion, if you will, and perhaps a hermeneutic of discontinuity, so to speak. And that caused him to offer this about-face perspective, which was, again, incredibly inconsistent in my estimation. So, mind you, this commission is headed by Metropolitan Hilarion, who has already made comments critical of the document and says this is not orthodox. And this was prior to this biblical commission's decision. So what you're seeing here is, well before this decision was made, the guy who heads this commission has already issued a negative and I'll say unfair judgment about it. So keep that in mind as we continue to read. It continues. The main item on the agenda of the meeting was the discussion of the text of the Declaration Fiducia Supplicans, adopted by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith of the Roman Catholic Church. The document signed by the prefect of the congregation, Cardinal Fernandez, and the secretary of the doctrinal department, Armando Mateo, approved and signed by Pope Francis, was published on official Vatican resources on December 18, 2023. The order to analyze the document was given to the Synodal Biblical Theological Commission by His Holiness Patriarch Kirill of Moscow. The meeting opened with an opening speech by Metropolitan Hilarion, in which the chairman of the SBBC gave a brief overview of the current directions of the commission's work, and also reported on the tasks that needed to be resolved within the framework of the plenum. The meeting participants expressed their positions regarding the theological content of the Declaration Fiducia Supplicans, which for the first time in the history, get this, for the first time in the history of the Catholic Church, proposed forms of blessing same-sex unions. Nope, nope, fail. You guys failed. Members of the Synodal Biblical Theological Commission were unanimous that this innovation reflected a sharp departure from Christian moral teaching. Now, if you've ever read the document, you already know where they failed, because the document, as we'll see here in a moment, to reiterate, has explicitly rejected blessing same-sex unions. So already we have a problem. But number two, the claim is made that there is now a sharp departure on part of the Catholic position from Christian moral teaching. That's rich, coming from Eastern Orthodox, which we'll see here in a moment how it's ironic. But I want to sincerely ask something here. These men, 24 of them, it would seem, unanimously said this is a departure, seemingly on a false basis. Looks like they got it wrong, but maybe there's something lost in translation here. All right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But they unanimously made this decision. Now, I have a question for you. If Hilarion, prior to this, the chairman prior to this, has already publicly said this document is a departure from traditional Christian morality and is not orthodox, was there really freedom from the commission members to express their perspective on this document freely and honestly? Can you imagine if one of these Orthodox theologians said, hey, you know what? Fiducia Supplicans is Orthodox. What would that mean? It would mean for Hilarion, a man of great power in the Russian Orthodox Church, that all of a sudden this guy on this commission is not Orthodox. So was there really room for fair discussion here when the chairman of the committee has already predetermined and prejudged the document as effectively heretical? Can you imagine one of them stands up and says, yeah, actually, this is Orthodox? You really think that that would go over well? Clearly, there's going to be considerable pressure and groupthink pressure to just say, yeah, this is a departure from Christian morality, and we'll just go with what the headlines are saying when they slander the Vatican and the Pope, saying that it's now blessing same-sex unions, even though the document explicitly rejects that. Can we sincerely and honestly say that these members really evaluated this fairly and openly? Get out of here. There's no way they did that, because as soon as one of them said, hey, this thing is Orthodox, hey guys, I think you guys have misjudged it, that guy would be ostracized. That guy would be shunned. There'd be a witch hunt for that guy. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. But let me show you something that Metropolitan Hilarion has said a while back. And then we're going to take a look at Fiducia Supplicans. And after that, we're going to consider, are the Orthodox really in a position to evaluate Christian morality? That's what we're up against. Let me show you this. This is Hilarion responding to that 2021 document when it originally came out in 2021. So this is a 2021 interview. He says, commenting on the possibility of people of non-traditional orientation to receive an individual blessing, the Metropolitan expressed the following opinion. As far as I could understand the meaning of this document, it means that people who are in same-sex unions cannot receive the blessing of the church in any form. This does not exclude a possibility for each of them individually to receive a blessing from the church. Not a blessing for the sinful cohabitation, in other words, the union, but a simple blessing. Let me stop here. What you just heard from Hilarion in 2021, what he's saying right here is exactly what Fiducia Supplicans says in December of 2023. It's the same thing. So Hilarion embraces Fiducia Supplicans. He just doesn't realize it. And he especially doesn't realize it because he's not reading the document with an open mind. He's rather reading it through a filtered and biased perspective, likely due to the way that the news has portrayed it. As I'll show again in a moment, what he just says here is exactly what Fiducia Supplicans says. He says, people with a homosexual orientation also come to our Orthodox churches. Each such person can go to the priest and receive a blessing from him. And the priest cannot deny them this. It seems like Father Josiah Trenham was saying he can. Seems like Father Josiah Trenham, also an Eastern Orthodox priest, was saying that he would not bless them, even individually. But if such a person says, Father, bless me for a same-sex union, then the priest, of course, will refuse. So what Hilarion is saying is true. You can't bless the union. You can't bless the cohabitation. You can't bless the sin, but you can bless the persons, right? The individuals. What he's saying is 100% Orthodox, both Eastern Orthodox and also theologically Orthodox. But amazingly, that's exactly what Fiducia Supplicans is saying. And in 2021, he's on board with the church's position. Now in 2023, when there's a shift in the way the church's position is portrayed in the media, he all of a sudden thinks that there's a change in the Catholic Church's position, despite the fact that the document Fiducia Supplicans reiterates the 2021 decision. Nothing's changed. It's restated that 2021 position for the people who are dissenting against it. And it explicitly makes the distinctions that he himself makes. You can't bless the union, you can bless the persons. You can't bless the union, you can bless the individuals who make up the union, however. The same distinction he's making is what Fiducia Supplicans says. Which is why you see Pope Francis saying the following, which it would seem this biblical commission did not consider. Pope Francis said this, well before the biblical commission, when a couple spontaneously approaches a minister and asks for them, he is not blessing the union. Pope Francis, straight from the horse's mouth, says when a same-sex couple comes to the priest, he is not blessing the union. That's what Hilarion said. But simply the people who together have requested it. The people. So watch what he says. Not the union, but the persons. The persons, the individuals, the people. Yes, these people, the individuals, are in a disordered union, but you don't bless the union, you bless the persons. That's exactly what Hilarion was saying. So what Pope Francis says is exactly what Hilarion says. However, Hilarion is portraying Pope Francis in the Vatican as saying something else. He says, not the union, but the persons, naturally taking into account the context, sensitivities, the places where one lives, and the most appropriate ways to do it. In other words, you cannot do this if it is going to give a scandalous appearance that would look like you are somehow blessing the union. Note this from a recent article that also just came out from Vatican News just in the last few days. Fiducia Supplicans repeatedly clarifies that imparting a pastoral or spontaneous blessing, that is a non-ritual blessing, without any nuptial element to an irregular couple that approaches a priest or a deacon does not imply and cannot represent in any way an approval of the union between the two. Exactly what Hilarion was saying is the Orthodox view and is his own view. As the document states, it cannot be considered an offering, or it cannot be considered as offering a form of moral legitimacy to a union that presumes to be a marriage or an extramarital sexual practice. So it is not a blessing of the union. That was paragraph 11 that it's quoting from, by the way. Instead, the meaning is that of an invocation imploring God to allow the seeds of goodness to grow in the direction he desires. So it's not for the union. It's explicitly prohibiting a blessing for the union. Once again, restating and reasserting that 2021 decision that Hilarion was all on board with. And now I have to wonder, how in the world did 24 Orthodox theologians, to their shame, come to this wild conclusion that this is a departure from traditional Christian morality when the document is so abundantly clear and it actually expresses their own theological views? To their shame, they did this. And honestly, again, I don't think that they could have sincerely examined the document with an open mind, because we all know as soon as one of these guys says, hey, Fiducia Supplicans is Orthodox, they would immediately be shunned and persecuted by Hilarion and others in the Orthodox Church who have already judged the document as heretical. So this is a clown show, is what this is. Re-examining the document, paragraph 5 of Fiducia Supplicans explicitly says the church does not have the power to impart blessings on unions of persons of the same sex. And yet, these incredible theologians have concluded that it's a blessing for same-sex unions. Incredible. Despite what the document says, despite the numerous clarifications coming from the Vatican, they still get it wrong. Well, that's to be expected because they get other areas of Christian morality wrong, as we'll see here in a moment. But again, paragraph 5, union is not blessed. Paragraph 11, church does not have the power to confer its liturgical blessing when that would somehow offer a form of moral legitimacy to a union that presumes to be a marriage or an extramarital sexual practice. You can't bless the union, it says. And then later on, when it talks about blessings for couples of the same sex, it's not talking about blessing their union. It's talking about blessing the individuals, as we see in paragraph 31 and also paragraph 38, where it says right here, even individuals in the English. And when you look at the other languages, it's the same sentence. It says that the blessing is on them, not on their union. So in the very context of this discussion of blessings for couples in an irregular situation, it makes it abundantly clear the blessing is not for their union, it's for the persons, for the individuals, which is then why you see in the clarification coming from the Vatican, Fernandez gives an example of this kind of blessing. And watch what he says. Lord, look at these children of yours. Grant them health, work, peace, and mutual help. Free them from everything that contradicts your gospel. Far from saying, hey, your union and your sin is now blessed. Rather, the blessing even says, be freed from the bondage of sin. Free them from everything that is sinful. Free them from everything that contradicts your gospel, and allow them to live in accordance with your will. Then it concludes with the sign of the cross on each of the two persons. It's an individual blessing on each of them, not for the couple as couple, because you can't bless their sinful union, but rather for two persons. So over and over and over, the document is clear. The clarifications are clear. And yet, these Orthodox theologians can't get it right. They should be named Can't Get Right. You remember that movie from Life, Can't Get Right? That's their new name, Can't Get Right. It's incredible. How much more clear can the church be? And the irony is the Orthodox actually accept Fiducia Supplicans theology and position. They're just not being honest. They're just not being sincere about it. But I have a sincere question. Are the Eastern Orthodox really in a position to evaluate Christian morality and judge the Vatican for departing from Christian morality? That's a sincere question. And I say it with all due respect. I don't say this to be mean or to put Eastern Orthodox down. I ask sincerely. When the Russian Orthodox Church allows for up to 4 marriages, it has departed from our Lord's teaching when it allows for divorce and remarriage. When the Russian Orthodox Church allows for artificial contraception in a marriage, in some particular cases, it has departed from traditional Christian morality. And some Orthodox will admit this. Some Orthodox will admit their practices of divorce and remarriage are wrong, and their perspectives on contraception, artificial contraception, are wrong. But do they really have a leg to stand on here? Moreover, I just can't take any kind of theological evaluation from Orthodox seriously when they lack a magisterium. Not to mention that it would seem to me that rather than addressing these issues in the Catholic Church, it would be more useful for these theologians to work on healing the schism within their own Orthodox churches, because right now, Russia is not in communion with Constantinople and Alexandria. And so there's this massive schism right now in Eastern Orthodoxy. I think their resources should be spent on addressing that issue, problems internally, rather than evaluating Catholicism in such a poor way. But let me share my screen and show you that I'm not making this up. This is an interesting comment on Ancient Faith Ministries, an Orthodox website and social media outlet, and also they have all kinds of shows, things like that. Their hit piece on me was pretty terrible, so go and watch that show, by the way. But Father Tom Hopko made these comments. The late Father Tom Hopko. He says, in the Orthodox canonical tradition, sometimes it happens twice for whatever reason. And there was the case of the Emperor Leo the Wise, Leo VI, who got divorced 3 times because his wives bore no children, and he wanted to have an heir to the throne and so on. When he wanted to get married the 4th time, then a big fuss was raised. Interesting. The big fuss was was over a 4th marriage. Not a 2nd, not a 3rd, but over the 4th. And the bishop said, this is impossible. 3 times is all you can do. So you can only get divorced 3 times, not a 4th. This is a joke. And that's it. There's no 4th marriage. I'm sorry. I mean, look, if there's a 2nd, a 3rd, there can be a 4th, there can be a 5th, there can be a 6th. Upon what basis do you have a 2nd and a 3rd, but not a 4th? This is just ridiculous, with all due respect. Which then led to a popular understanding that in the Orthodox Church, you could get married 3 times, but not 4. Hey, you can sin 3 times in Orthodoxy, but not 4 times. That's where we draw the line. You can't sin 4 times, but you can sin 3 times. Well, there is a certain truth to that, but that doesn't mean that just automatically you can get married 3 times. Hey, it doesn't mean automatically you can sin 3 times. You know, we qualify. We qualify. You can sin 3 times in a very qualified way, but you can't do it a 4th time. This is a joke. You get married, you have a divorce. Well, then you could get married again and break up or die or divorce, and you could get married again, and that would be it. No 4th marriage, just 3 times, and that's it. But that's a very flippant way of looking at it, and this is not the right way. In other words, we need to be less flippant when we sin and tolerate sin. Can't be so flippant about sinning. We're just going to allow sin in a very strict sense, but only up to the 3rd time. But when it's the 4th time, no. This is a joke. And this is Orthodoxy, not just Russian Orthodox, but Orthodoxy as a whole, including the theologians who attempted to evaluate the Catholic position on morality. This is a joke. This is like the Church of England trying to criticize Pope Francis for Fiducia Supplicans. This is what it's honestly like. Look at this also from the Russian Orthodox Church. Moscow Patriarchate. On contraception. Among the problems which need a religious and moral assessment is that of contraception. Some contraceptives have an abortive effect, interrupting artificially the life of the embryo in the first stages of his life. Therefore, the same judgments are applicable to the use of them as to abortion. In other words, you can't use abortifacient contraceptions. But other means, which do not involve interrupting an already conceived life, cannot be equated with abortion in the least. So there's other forms of contraception, as long as they're not abortifacient and they don't result in an abortion. Those can't be equated with these. In defining their attitude to non-abortive contraceptives, Christian spouses should remember that human reproduction is one of the principal purposes of the divinely established marital union. The deliberate refusal of childbirth on egoistic grounds devalues marriage and is a definite sin. So, if you're using artificial contraception that is non-abortifacient to just outright forever, kind of indefinitely refuse to have children, that's wrong. But, if it's not that, it's just kind of, I don't want to have children for now kind of thing, that could be allowed. Could be, maybe. Got to talk to your confessor, maybe. At the same time, spouses are responsible before God for the comprehensive upbringing of their children. We've heard this before, right? One of the ways to be responsible for their birth is to restrain themselves from sexual relations for a time. So practice abstinence. That's one option here. However, Christian spouses should remember the words of St. Paul addressed to them: defraud ye not one another the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. So, you could practice abstinence, but you can't do that indefinitely, because that goes against 1 Corinthians 7. Therefore, clearly, spouses should make such decisions mutually on the counsel of their spiritual father. So basically, with certain guidelines and parameters in mind, non-abortifacient contraceptives can be allowed in your marriage. It might not be the primary go-to. It might not be a thing that you should do at all times, but, could allow for it with the guidance of your spiritual father. Now, in reality, what this means is, hey, you know what? With some circumstances, you can sin. Talk to your spiritual father, your confessor allows for it. Some rare cases, with this and that condition, you can sin. With all due respect to my Eastern Orthodox brothers, you need to address this issue first in Orthodoxy before you're in a position to evaluate the Catholic Church's position. Not only that, Eastern Orthodox, if you're listening, you currently, whether you realize it or not, are in schism, and you hold to several heresies that depart from your own ecumenical councils. I say that out of respect and love, but you need to hear the truth, since we're bringing out the guns. Since you're coming with claims that we've departed from the Christian faith, well, you need to take a look in the mirror and really ask, have you done that? Are you even in a position to evaluate us for that? You need to consider these things. So, I found this ridiculous. And I found it dishonest, frankly, because it completely goes against what the document said. It's actually in line with the Orthodox perspective. And I don't believe for 1 minute that these theologians sincerely evaluated with an open mind the document, because we know very well, as soon as one of them said, hey, yeah, Fiducia Supplicans is Orthodox, that'd be the end of that guy's career. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Not buying it at all. And it's a shame that this is where the Eastern Orthodox have gone, at least when it comes to Russian Orthodoxy. To my knowledge, the Ecumenical Patriarch, that they're not in communion with, has not made any comments about Fiducia Supplicans. To my knowledge, maybe I've missed something. If I missed something, send it to me. So I haven't heard anything from him. I haven't really heard anything from most of the other patriarchs. Again, if it's out there, please just send it my way. I haven't seen it. I don't know if Moscow is alone on this one. They sure seem to be alone in the rest of their issues, such as their understanding of primacy, and their schism, and also in going into the territory of the Alexandrian Patriarchate. Um, aside from those issues, I don't know if they're really, expressing something that the other patriarchates agree with. Send me something if you come across it. I will be interested to see how the Orthodox deal with this internally, because I imagine there's going to be some Orthodox patriarchates and synods who don't agree with Moscow on this point. And then I kind of wonder, how does that work then internally? All right. Well, anyways, I hope this was helpful. If it was, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button. And of course, check me out at patreon.com/Reason and Theology if you want to support what I'm doing here with RNT. All right, that's going to do it. See you on a little bit for another show. God bless. Hey friends, do you want others to discover why the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus established? And do you want to help people make sense of all the confusion in the Catholic Church today? Help contribute to this mission by supporting Reason and Theology at patreon.com/Reason and Theology. By doing so, you'll also get access to exclusive content for patrons only. Also, if you want to deepen your faith, there are free ebooks and even courses that you can sign up for by visiting reason.podia.com. Are you a Catholic thinking about converting to Eastern Orthodoxy? Or are you a Protestant discerning whether or not to become Catholic or Eastern Orthodox? If so, I have the book just for you. It's called Answering Orthodoxy. It engages all of the arguments that Eastern Orthodox use against the Catholic Church. I respond to all of them. I show that they are in error, and in fact, they're inconsistent, because the things that Orthodox are objecting to are in fact found in their own tradition. So the fullness of the faith can only be found in the Catholic Church. Check out the book right now at shop.catholic.com for your copy today.